This is the High Ticket Media Mastery Show. I'm your host, Matthew J. Peters. Welcome to the show. If you're new, this is a show where we talk about the high ticket, high service, high expectations game and the media we need to create, the communication, the conversations that need to take place in order to thrive and perform at our best so we can make a profound impact in our marketplace and into the greater world. This is episode 8. Today we'll be talking with our guest, Sonja Palomino. Sonja became a financial coach after her family almost lost it all. In 2004, with a new baby on her hip and a new house under construction, a 401k loan, and up to their eyeballs in credit card debt, Sonja's family had a significant reduction in their income overnight. Through the guilt and shame and at one of the lowest points in her life, her passion was ignited. Making that transition from debt to freedom is not optional. Sonja believes that entrepreneurs work too hard to not bring it home. She has personally conducted over 9,000 one-on-one coaching sessions to transform relationships with money and get results. Her unique system looks at much more than simply numbers. She also empowers her clients to dig deeper, to focus on expansion and growth in this typically black and white financial realm. One of the reasons that I brought Sonja onto the program today is that she specializes in working with entrepreneurs with irregular income, showing them how to create strong financial foundations and build the lifestyle and future they before only silently dreamed about. Sonja, welcome to our show today. You know, a lot of clients I've worked with in the past, coaches, mentors, trainers, consultants, and business owners, they can have great income, and they also seem to most of the time have great expenses. Thus, they're always having to push for sales just to keep up with their spending. So I'm curious to know what you would have to say to people who make an enormous amount of money, but yet can't seem to keep up with their lifestyle.
Well, that's true. And actually, they were right where most people are. 95% of Americans, they don't have a budget. And I think that when we hear the word budget, most people, they just feel it's such a straitjacket. Why would we even want to bother with that? And I just know from my experience over 9,000 consultations later that the budget can actually lead us to freedom. So the best analogy that I have when it comes to a budget, we want to make sure we have a good financial foundation underneath our feet. So Matthew, when was the last time you were sitting at a stoplight, you looked over to the right, and you realized that that person sitting in that vehicle did not have a front windshield, did not have a steering wheel or a rearview mirror? When's the last time you've seen that on the road?
I've never actually seen that.
Well, and the interesting thing is that, unfortunately, we are driving our financial vehicles without that steering wheel, without the front windshield, and without the rearview mirror. And we wonder, no matter how much income we have coming in, why we can't gain traction, why we cannot get those 4 tires on the road. So the elements of a budget, they're just, the reason why that is really important is so we can get the weight of the world of our finances off of our shoulders. So the very first element is when it comes to that steering wheel, we want to be able to untape your hands, because if your hands are taped to your sides, you're in that financial vehicle, you're absolutely not in control. You are working really hard, you're providing excellent service and support, though you are not driving your own financial vehicle, and you end up exhausted at the end of the day. So the very first thing that I recommend is we have to insert that steering wheel. And the way that we do that, it is a budget that is paycheck by paycheck. It's a paycheck by paycheck budget. And I work with a lot of clients, working with entrepreneurs. It is my specialty. And what I hear a lot with my business owners is this: Sonja, I own my own business. I don't know exactly when my income is going to come in and how much is going to come in, so I can't budget. And so my response to that is, well, actually, it makes budgeting even more important for you than for someone that has consistent income coming in at consistent times. Let's say someone that has a salaried paycheck that's coming in. And so if someone does not have consistent income and doesn't have income coming in, let's say every other Friday, like a consistent paycheck, what I recommend is we've got to put you on what I call an artificial structure. And so for my business owners, it can be every Friday or every Monday, whatever the day of the week is that you're not absolutely exhausted. You're exhausted on a Friday, not a good day to start your budget, because we get to pick the day because you don't have a consistent paycheck coming in anyways. So we do want to have a very consistent structure as far as how we're setting that up. But what that is going to do, that is going to provide a skeletal structure to this budget that for business owners, there is not a structure. And that's the problem. The month becomes too long, and we are unable to see what is needed for that particular, what I call an artificial pay period. So that allows for us to untake your hands, and we can put your hands on that steering wheel. So that way you can have a consistent pay cycle in which to make decisions from, though we know that the income can come and can be variable, sometimes very variable. And sometimes it feels like it's feast or famine, that kind of thing. So that leads us to the next part of this financial vehicle. We want to be able to look ahead over the next 2 months. Because if we are sitting smack dab in the middle of a shortage, we need to be able to see that well in advance, because most of my business owners can't just on a dime bring in money today. And so we want to have that front windshield view. We want to be able to look ahead over the next 2 months to see how much is needed. We are not going to guess this perfectly, but 80% of your expenses, we pretty much know those in advance. You have consistent expenses for the business that are due at a particular time. We have consistent expenses personally that are due at a particular time. And so what we want to do is to build the budget around these expenses that we know are coming up month in and month out. And that's our responsibility to build the budget that way, so we can look ahead and we can be able to plan and prepare and see what is coming up around the corner. Just like when you're driving that vehicle, when we look out that front windshield, if there is a corner to maneuver around, we want to be able to see it in advance. So we can change some things in order to be able to maneuver around that corner. There will be other expenses that will just pop up. So we're not going to be able to predict everything. And thankfully, that's not necessary. Though we also know that there will be variable expenses and ways that we want to grow the business and build savings and things like that. So really that second piece, which is that front windshield, being able to look ahead over the next 2 months is just really important. So we are proactive rather than reactive. We're going to roll out of bed, especially financially, and most people, because the 95% of Americans don't have a budget. But even the 5% that do, Matthew, these concepts that I'm sharing with you, most people don't have these 3 elements that I'm sharing with you, that steering wheel. Now we're talking about the front windshield, being able to look ahead over the next 2 months. And so the third element, it is the rearview mirror. And it's a reconciliation of this budget, which tends to be very hypothetical. And because we're not ratcheting the budget down to reality. Typically, the budget, it is floating out there. It's something that we put time into. It's something we put energy into. But honestly, after we lay out the budget, we might not ever look at it again. And so we've just wasted that time. We've wasted that energy. And so this third piece is the rearview mirror piece. It's looking back at that bank account to see, well, where did my money go? And so that way we can update the budget with reality where it went. So if we can kind of get a grasp as far as, is this budget way off base? Do we need to adjust it so the budget can, for the very first time, actually be a living and breathing budget that we can lean on? It can speak back to us. It can give us very specific recommendations. So what I find is that if you're missing one of these 3 pieces, you're just not going to get the 4 tires on the road that my business owners deserve. They're working really hard. And if it's a feast or famine, when the money really is coming in, we want to stretch those dollars. And when it's not, we want to make sure we have a foundation set up to support that as well. So we can know these goals well in advance, so we don't have so much of that high and so much of that low. We can better balance that out as well. So when those 3 elements are pulled together, that is for the very first time where you can get 4 tires on the road so you can gain traction. And then the budget doesn't become this tool that literally sucks the living life out of you. You've already lived that way financially. This budget can actually be a tool for transformation. So those are pretty much the biggest things that I can think of, just even thinking foundationally. Matthew, to answer your question, the other thing that comes to mind as well, a lot of times when I'm working with my business owners, I will see someone and they'll have a personal bank account that they're running the personal finances out of. They're running the business finances out of that same bank account. And what ends up happening is it just becomes so muddy and murky, and it's all commingled. And especially when it comes to tax time, my goodness, it's just a rat's nest of receipts, and it's just this horrific process to go through to get numbers together for an accountant. And it really shouldn't be that way. So right out of the gate, for clients that have that commingled one checking account that they're running the personal finances and the business finances out of, it really is to separate those two. It's to have an account that is for the personal expenses, and then it's to have a separate bank account that's for those business expenses. Though before you can successfully make that transition, we have to have the budget that I was just referencing. We have to have that budget with those three elements that I shared, one for the personal, and then also one for the business. Because what we want to be able to do, and most clients, before they move forward with me, never have they really even ran a business at the level that the business deserves. And so we want to holistically be able to see 2 months in advance what's needed personally, what's needed for the business, holistically, how does that tie together, so that way that switch can happen, being proactive rather than reactive. So you are truly running a business rather than it feel like you're running a side hobby. And what can happen is the business can just suck the living lives out of us, because it just feels like we're always behind this thing. And Matthew, to your point, you just always feel like you're chasing after that next sale, chasing after that next conversion. I run my own business as well. And so we want that transformation to happen. So you are in charge of the business and you're using this to fuel your life rather than sucking everything out of you to run this business.
And I'm speaking from an experience of working with you, Sonja. That's one of the reasons why I had you on the call here today. So many people I've worked with in the past don't have any handle on their finances, and it's sad when they have a big payday of $25,000 or $50,000 or $100,000, and they didn't know their expenses. It's commingled with everything else. They're still living off their credit cards, and it just is a big rat's nest. One of the things I found is that there's a couple phases that I've gone through already. First is the shock of the reality of the way things really are. When I first look at the numbers and I take the time to see what the real expenses are of what is going out, what has been automated for the last 6 to 8 months, and I didn't even realize and I wasn't using. I've been just throwing away money. And there's a gut-wrenching feeling, but then it's also followed by a sense of liberation, because now I know the truth and I can make decisions from the truth instead of just looking at bank balance or a credit card balance and saying, I have this much money to spend. And so what have you seen in the past with the people you work with in a budget being more liberating than confining?
No, absolutely. And it really goes back to the point of if you truly are looking at that bank account balance, looking for that to be the guide as far as what should I say yes to, what should I say no to, because it's really all about priorities. How can I grow this business? How can this business fuel our personal goals and aspirations? And ultimately, the whole entire purpose of running a business is to be able to bring it home. And so the main thing is having that forward-looking view into that budget, because if we don't have an idea in for example, a week-by-week level or an every 2-week level, what's going to be coming up around the corner for the business, what's going to be coming up around the corner for the personal finances, we are unable to see that in advance to plan and prepare. And I find that most of my business owners, they don't have any sort of goals. And I'm talking about not the big goals as far as what's the goal, I want my company to be at this level.